Tele-Townhall. Today's Tele-Townhall is really focused on our curriculum, and we've done a lot of absolutely incredible work in evolving our curriculum over time. Some of you may know that we started as an organization focused on HIV, really specifically broadened into sexual health. And as we're going to learn today, I don't want to spill the beans, but there's a lot more great work that we're doing across all of adolescent health, and we're really excited to share that with you. I will not speak too long today because it's really our program team that has done some incredible work in developing these curricula, in addition to many different community members. I don't know if some of them are on this call today, but something that our organization is really proud about is, paying attention to the latest science about what works in adolescent health and health education, but also recognizing that science doesn't always include all of the voices that have different types of knowledge around how to improve health and how to provide something meaningful in the community. So this process has also been a huge credit to parents and caregivers in the DC community, to young people, to older teenagers, to our college athletes who have come up with some pretty creative ideas to build our curricula. And I'm excited to get into that today. I think the only thing I will do, other than briefly introducing, is give you all, if we can go to the next slide, just a little bit of scope about who is participating in these programs. This year, we have 11 middle school partners. We've got athletes from 4 universities: Howard, Georgetown, GW, and American. About 125 athletes. We're actually running a training this weekend, and we're really excited to do, actually hosting it for the first time ever in one of our middle school partners who's agreed to bring our athletes in and allow us to have our training there. And we're aiming to reach about 1,500 DC middle school students with our programs this year. You'll see in the top right-hand corner, for those of us who have been tracking us over time, these are all-time numbers. We've now surpassed 10,000 participants in our programs, and we've mobilized more than 1,500 Division I athletes to become health educators and facilitate our curricula. So I'm really, really excited to see everyone here today and all of the different faces who have supported this work in some fashion and many different fashions. And it's cool to see everyone in the same room today. But I know we're close on time, and I think I'm already over. So I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Jane Wallace, who is our fearless Director of Programs and Operations, and she's going to dive deep into the Tele-Townhall.
Thanks, Tyler. Hey, everybody. My name is Jane. In Grassroots, everybody calls me J-Dub, so feel free to use whatever you think is best. So we have a ton we want to talk about today, because this is really the first forum we have had to really explain the work we've been doing over the last 5 years to transform what was our sexual health sport for development curriculum into something that is really comprehensive health education for schools. So I'm pumped because I feel like I get to talk at boring conferences, but I rarely get to talk in front of people that have known us and supported us for a long time, and also people that want to support us moving forward. So this is exciting. Don't mind me, I will talk fast because I'm trying to share so much information in a really short amount of time. But I'm also not going to talk too much because the program team that we have grown in the last few years is really exciting. So I'm really excited to show so many of you and a lot of kind of older faces and some newer faces who our program team is today. So we are going to start with just going through our process. How did we create a community-driven curriculum development process? Then we're going to really get into what does it look like, what's our work now, and then we'll finish up with how we measure this and give an opportunity for everybody to ask some questions. So without further ado, I'll go to the next slide. Awesome. So one of the big things that I and I think our entire team here at Grassroots is working towards is really thinking about the work that we do as asset driven. In years of public health, the way I used to study public health, the way a lot of people talk about public health, we think about problems. What are problems that we have in the community and how do we address them? So we can look at things like DC having the statistic in 2016 that said that DC showed that fewer than 5% of DC schools met the city's required standards for health education and physical activity. So a little context of that, middle schools are supposed to have 75 minutes of health per week, according to the health standards that are set both nationally and by our Office of State Superintendent of Education here in DC. We know there are a lot of reasons for that. We can focus on that problem for years. We can also think about this from an asset-based framework. So schools are the best and possibly the only means to ensure that all children obtain the health knowledge and skills that they need for long and productive lives. We know that schools are the one space where every single student in our city is. So we know that if we really want to advance health equity, if we really want to create a community and a society that values health, then we need to think about the strengths that we have. And one of the strengths is that every student in this country goes to school, other than homeschoolers, but we'll keep moving here. All right, Diana, next slide. So with this asset framework in mind, we're going away from this concept of solutions and really thinking about community innovation. This isn't our problem as people sitting in an office space to solve. This is something that we want to create a space where communities come together to innovate, to create their own solutions, to really think about what we already have, how we can do that better, and how we can continue to educate our population. So in 2017, we started a new strategic plan. So as many of our grassroots alums know, we play games, we have fun, we teach kids about health, and we use something really unique, which is our NCAA Division I student athletes to make that happen. So our athletes go into schools and teach about health. But in 2017, we started having teachers say, why just sexual health? Why not mental health? Why not nutrition? Why not other things that are affecting our youth? Why one program for 10 weeks? Why not over the course of middle school? So we really took that and created this plan where we could achieve multiple health outcomes over the middle school years. So next slide. Awesome. So what is it that we do? Like I said, we train student athletes. That's our far side of our left. This is my fun version of a logic model for the public health brains out there. And then we have what we call our pipeline approach. So we start with our sixth graders and we teach about nutrition and physical health. And I'm gonna let my program team describe a little bit more about what that looks like later. Then when our students are finished with their sixth grade program and they're in seventh grade, we get into our comprehensive sexual health. For those that have been involved with grassroots for a long time, they know that the emphasis was originally solely on HIV and STIs and prevention for HIV. We've elevated our curriculum now to include a lot more around consent, healthy relationships, really understanding boundaries and how we can use the information to
I really like that, Jay.
and
I think that's a good way to.
Awesome. And then when we move into our eighth grade curriculum, we have a mental health promotion curriculum. So this is all, it's not necessarily teaching about mental health and disease. It's really thinking about individuals and mental health promotion across our entire community. So the three curriculum are then substituted by what we call our other two main programs. So we have our parent caregiver workshops and connecting students to local service providers. The parent caregiver workshop we call Grassroots Fam is an opportunity for parents to learn what we're teaching our students and help them practice and create a community of practice, communicating with their youth about these challenging topics. I know my dad is on this call right now, and I would not have wanted to talk to him about my personal health when I was in middle school. So we recognize the value in helping parents come to a place where they can have these conversations, knowing that their kids are having them in school through their grassroots programming. And then secondly, we have our Grassroots Connect. And this is a program where after our students finish their 10 weeks of health education with us, we bring in other service providers. So people that are doing testing around HIV and STIs, people that are providing nutrition supplements within communities, people that are doing mental health support, counseling, social workers in our communities. And we introduce our students to them so that they know A, who they can access when they want services, but B, so that they're starting to see these names and they understand where these services will be so that they can utilize them as they continue to get older. And we know that that's a big push in the public health world to get those first-time testers in, get people involved in the medical system sooner so that we trust preventative care. And then lastly, and you'll see that this a lot today, we have a huge emphasis on monitoring evaluation. I go back to that problem statement versus really thinking about an asset-based model. We don't want to just evaluate to put it up on posters or to go to conferences or to get published. We want to evaluate our programs so that they get better every single semester. So we take what we learn from our data, we use it, we make our curriculum stronger every single semester, which I know annoys our athletes sometimes because we're constantly making changes. But we also have an emphasis on giving that data to our community. It's their data. Our students are taking these surveys. Our parents are taking these surveys. Our teachers are taking surveys. We want them to be able to use that data. So we have a huge emphasis on our sorry, I was muted real quick. But we want our schools to be able to see that data and be able to use it and fill in other gaps as well. And then lastly, we plan for organizational growth, which is going to be the whole topic of our next Tele-Townhall. So I'm not going to get into that today. And next slide. Awesome. So the big question that people always ask me, how do we develop our health education curricula? I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and many of you on this call probably have heard me do that. But we are following the whole school, whole community, whole child model. And we really focus on all of the different things that impact a child's health. We don't create curricula that's just like, okay, here are all the groups of nutrition, and we're going to just teach that to you. No, we want to think about all the things that impact the food that goes into your body, all the things that impact your decision to be physically active. And we want to help students think differently so that they can make their own healthy decisions. So we build our curriculum using three main pillars. We have the public health approach. So we look at what other public health programs do, what is the implementation science, how can we copy things that would work here in DC. Secondly, we look at the education standards. So the national health standards created by the CDC, and then most states and cities have their own additional standards on top of that. So we work with both the national standard and DC's Office of State Superintendent of Education standards to make sure that we are grade appropriately hitting topics, and we can help schools report out on what standards their students are receiving through grassroots. And then lastly, and by far the thing that impacts our programs the most, is the DC community themselves. So we ran a pretty robust focus group system where we met with parents, teachers, students, high school students who had just graduated from middle school, and our athletes to think about what, it's not just what we're teaching, but it's how we're teaching it. It's how we're talking about it. And how can we make sure that every example in our curriculum makes sense to the youth that we are trying to reach. So next slide. So what does this actually look like in process? Like, yeah, we use all three of them. Here is a kind of wheel. It goes, in my mind, this kind of goes backwards, but you'll see the one on the left. So we start with identifying the need. That's looking at all the data, that's gathering our focus groups, literature reviews, looking at surveys, taking a whole bunch of information. And then we come down to select our key topics or components. And each session in our curriculum has a key topic that we are going to address. We typically call these sessions practices because we're sticking with our NCAA sports model. Then you'll see that we identify the goals and outcomes. That'll be largely based on the standards set from the education standards that I mentioned, as well as things that the community wants. What are the goals of the community? This isn't Jane writing a curriculum, right? This is our community coming together to say, this is what we want to see. This is the change we want to see. And then next, we brainstorm activities and gamify our curriculum. So this is the fun part. This is the part where I bring tons of athletes into the office. Our team gets super creative. And we take games that we know our students like. We take like classic PE games like dodgeball, and we use these games to create metaphors around health. And that's what Trinai and Lara are going to share with you in a minute. And then lastly, we pilot, evaluate, and adapt. Like I said, we are adapting our curriculum every single semester. We are constantly finding ways to improve and get this information across to students easier. We're also finding ways to make the conversation around the curriculum more robust. So in this last year, obviously I cannot speak to anything within our programs without addressing the COVID-19 pandemic that we are still living through. So we were able to pivot our programs online and work with students virtually, but we also took a lot of the lessons learned from our virtual online platform and applied them in person. So we now have everything in small groups, because what we learned online is that kids will talk a lot more when they don't feel like everybody's listening, right? If you have to raise your hand and answer a question in front of 25 kids, are you as likely to do that as you are if it's 4 or 5 students with one athlete in a smaller setting? So we take a lot of these lessons that we're learning and we put them back into the curriculum. And then you'll see we go kind of back around the circle again, because every year we're re-identifying the need. We're looking again at our key topics and making sure that there aren't changes we want to see. And then we're continuing through this process. So we say this all the time, but our curriculum isn't done. We spent, the last 3 years building out this robust curriculum, but this is a process that continues. And it's something that we're really proud of because we've created a product that can constantly be revised, as opposed to one thing that then we're going to test over the next 5 years. So next slide. So I'm going to throw it over now to Trinaya, one of our program coordinators. I will let her introduce herself. But our 2 program coordinators here are incredible. They're in the schools all the time. Let's face it, I'm too old. I no longer connect to students in the way that I wish that I was. So they are really the 2 that make everything happen on the ground. So Trinaya, the floor is yours.
Thanks, J-Dub. I actually just came from a school, so that's kind of crazy. But yeah, so I just came from a school. We had to actually give out a post survey. So that, I guess that kind of shows how, this is all an iterative process and that like we're constantly working and partnering with schools. So my name is Trinaya. I go by Trigger Trey, and I am one of the 2 program coordinators here. Similar to what J-Dub was saying, we are really out here working with the schools and our partners, but let's face it,
Oh, did we lose Trinaya? All right, let's move ahead. Trinaya was going to go through the scope and sequence and explain our nutrition programs, but let's move to Lara and our 7th grade sexual health curriculum, and then we can backtrack later. Lara, are you ready?
Got you. Thank you. And Trinaya is just down the hall, so if you see her running around in the background, then we'll know what happened. But thank you so much, Jane. My name is Lara. Nickname is Lara Bar, and I'm one of the 2 program coordinators. And Trinaya and I work alongside student athletes, teachers, coaches, administrators, and everybody that works to make sure our programs run as smoothly and efficiently as possible. If Trinaya turns her camera on within the next 10 seconds, I'll let her take it away. Because, it's a 3-year pipeline. You can't just skip to sexual health without going through nutrition first.
yes, I'm back.
Shout out. Take it away.
My computer died, so sorry. But let's go back to the nutrition slide. Okay, so sorry about that. So like we were saying, the nutrition curriculum, we work with students in the 6th grade. We call each game a practice. And for me, I think the nutrition curriculum highlights the metaphors and really shows just how, the games represent the metaphors and how the metaphors represent the life or the reality that the students have to kind of deal with when it comes to nutrition. I actually really like it. So to start off, we kind of start with Scramble, which is a game kind of getting the influences that the students have, as well as trying to, I guess, understand certain barriers and access that exist. And then as we go on to the practices, we start talking about different food groups and the functions that they have in the body, and then thinking about how those functions then impact our body over the long term. So then by the end, we are at kind of Get It Together, where the students are playing a dodgeball game, and quite literally they are dodging the barriers that impacts their nutrition and physical health. And I think the most important aspect about that game is that the students not only are faced with the barriers, but they then have to come up with the solutions in order to get into the game. And of course, we wouldn't be TGP without a challenge. So some barriers are impossible. And if you get hit, it sucks you out of the game, but I think it represents the reality of life. So let's go on to the next slide. All right, so I kind of want us to put our 6th grader thinking caps on really quick. And in the chat, if you have not eaten all of your lunch before, please be honest, say yes, I don't eat all of my lunch. When you were in the 6th grade, did you eat all of your lunch? So I'm gonna basically go off the general consensus that not all of us ate all of our lunches. To be honest, I didn't. If it was Pizza Friday, yes. Taco Tuesday, definitely. But if we have spoiled milk on Wednesdays, definitely not eating it. But the reality of that is, when we start to throw away certain foods, we lose the vitamins and minerals that those foods have for us. So for example, we have a game called Mineral River, where the students are tasked with getting across the gym floor using mineral pods. And those mineral pods represents the food that they have eaten. And each round, of course, like we said, we make it harder. So the more that we throw away food, of course, the less we are getting our vitamins and minerals. So students now have a challenge to get across the river with less pods. And it makes it very hard for the students. But I think that is the metaphor that we're really trying to explain. And I really enjoy that game. It's one of my favorite games because the metaphor is very simple and easy. And as you can see, I want to talk about some major things that I've seen within my first year working here with the nutrition curriculum. And J-Dubs mentioned this before, is, we talk about influences, we talk about the barriers, but it's all about the asset framing and having students think about their nutrition and ways to overcome that. And just as much as all of the curriculum requires team building, I think for me, nutrition really requires team building because students are working together to accomplish a goal. And of course, with individual choice, you have some students that are going to self-sabotage. By all means, self-sabotage. But I think it shows, when the team don't accomplish a goal or may not finish it how they want, they're learning not only their team building skills, but their own skills in terms of individual choice. And by the end are making those choices for themselves. So I can go on about nutrition. I'm gonna pass it off to one of my program besties, Lara, who will go into the sexual health as she have already started.
Thank you so much, program bestie. Now we're moving into 7th grade. Oh, 7th grade. I hope everyone is able to put on their thinking caps for 7th grade and really channel. Go back aside, please. We're still brainstorming. We're still in that building relationship connection time. So we know this is it can be a tumultuous time for everyone. Things are changing, things are happening. You don't really know what's up. So in the chat, I want everyone to share one thing that you were super confused by during 7th grade. This can be like a change in your body. It can be a topic you wish you learned more about, something people didn't explain. Oh, she said boys. Ready to go. You had the answer. Okay. Puberty, your period, menstruation. Why is your body changing? Okay, there are a lot more than 4 people in this meeting, so I'm gonna say. And I'm pretty sure everyone went through 7th grade puberty at one point. The way Mac blacked out during 7th grade. Body type and specialization. Okay. T. Spence didn't answer and he's the executive director. Anyways. Okay, just feeling down. Thank you so much, Gregory, for sharing that. I'm sure people can relate to that feeling. So, why was I way shorter than everyone in 7th grade? So sorry to hear, and it seems like you're still carrying that along with you to this day. So sometimes the things that happen in 7th grade can still affect us long term, right? Because we know this is an important developmental age, whether it's about nutrition, sexual health, or mental health. What the things that we learn now can impact us through and beyond our life. So with all these changes comes, okay, sorry, last thing. We still got gossip. Won't stop back. Thank you. So with all these changes, there comes curiosity about sex, relationships, and there's always the rumor of what clique you're rolling with who, what are you doing? So now I want everyone to think deeply and open your hearts and tell me the name of your middle school crush. And don't lie thinking that you don't remember it, because I know you do. I'm looking at you, Diana Gardner, Gregory Germain, Spencer Kelly. I know you got something. Okay, Brendan Martin. Okay. Will Mendelson. Ben Hollinger, Christian. Abraham, like the president. Did he never lie as well? Okay. Michael. Wait a minute. Isn't Michael Edgar on this call? Or am I tripping? Never mind. Anyways. Okay. All right. Christian White. He was a twin? Maybe like both? Maybe you have to look into that. Because you got a 2 out of 2 shot of it working out. But, okay, now we can get into curriculum. Thank you, everybody, for those lovely answers. So I'm not going to go through every point, but you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with TGP's flagship curricula. As T. Spence mentioned, the Grassroots Project started off as a HIV organization, and now we've expanded to have comprehensive sexual health education. I will highlight some of the practices like prevention soccer, where we have a multi-level soccer game that shows the efficiency of different contraceptive methods in protecting against HIV, STIs, and unplanned pregnancy. We also discuss the impact that substance use can have on using these contraceptives, on using them properly, on having a conversation that partners feel good about, and about consent. So we know that small groups are very important for this curricula. Just like J-Dub was saying, students are more able to have these open conversations together with the student athlete, and they don't have the pressure of speaking in front of the whole classroom. So they're able to have these conversations about consent, about condoms, and they're able to ask their coach, be like, how does sex even work? How does pregnancy even happen? How do you use a condom? Where can you even get condoms? All these questions that are so relevant, but a student might not want to ask, or they might not feel it's the appropriate place to ask. But thanks to our new and improved manuals, I have one right here. This is the mental health one. We have so much information in these. We even have little graphics, little charts. We have pictures, CDC diagrams, anything that you can want. Most of the things that you can want are in the manual. So since COVID, since virtual time, the Grassroots Project has revised all of the manuals and looked through them through a social and racial justice lens, so they're as comprehensive as possible, and we're really trying to make our best effort that they're led by the community and are representing things in the best way. We also have dodgeball games, soccer games, running, team building, all those awesome things that Trinai was mentioning to really keep things moving. Yes, thank you so much, Dig. So in this one, we know that the sexual health curriculum covers a broad range of topics. So we start with really laying the groundwork for sexual health. What does this look like? We know it starts with the contract that every single grassroots student has had to sign in the 12 years of this organization. The 4 words on the contract are very simple: respect, comfort, participate, and share. So every single student has to agree to these terms, or else they get kicked out, they send home, and they don't participate. So we know it's so important to set the scene for sexual health because we want everyone to feel comfortable in our space. We also do the 4 ways to stay strong, which is a way to mitigate risks and be resilient, and really set some goals to have the personal strengths to be resilient in different scenarios. Then we move into that important content information by sharing statistics and facts about HIV, STI, unplanned pregnancy, and also puberty. So we have a very fun dodgeball game called Hormone Monster, where it's absolute mayhem and it is so much fun. It's a new game that we have, and you guys are just gonna have to see it in person. I can't say much more. It is one of the most hectic things you'll see, and it just brightens your day. So the middle section is kind of about dispelling myths about sex, learning the facts. Oh, 4-way dodgeball. That is an important point, mac and cheese. Thank you so much. It is 4-way dodgeball. So just imagine 7th graders, 4-way dodgeball. I don't think I need to say a lot more than that because you can just imagine if you know some 7th graders. So we finish our curriculum talking about pressures around sex, different influences that people might have, how to communicate around condoms, and students' comfort level around sexual health. And just like every program, we finish with post surveys where we truly get an insight about how students are feeling about the curriculum and changes in their comfortability around these topics. And like I mentioned in the manual, there are resources in the back that provide additional information and places to, like, such as places to get tested, where to get condoms, how to properly use a condom, and charts about different STIs and even contraceptive methods, like a compare and contrast, where can you get these, how effective are they, and all that business. Next slide. All right, so for this introduction, I want everyone using one word or emojis tell me the biggest stressor you had in 8th grade. And as you know from the 7th grade one, I want everyone to participate, even if you have your camera off. This is grassroots. High school, grades, friend groups. No one's using emojis, but that's cool. Friends, grades. I don't really stress about grades because what you get is what you get. At this point, you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, boys, acne, grades. I'm seeing a lot of similarities here. Lots of people saying boys, people saying relationships, friends, breakups and makeups. All been there, T-Spence. I got you. Boys, sports, acne. Yeah, similar things. And very quickly, or okay, I'll give you, not very quickly, maybe just quickly, I'll give you some time to think about it, because this one's a little bit deeper too. I want you to give yourself some advice to your 8th grade self. So think about some things that you wish you had known in 8th grade that you know now. Maybe it's a lesson learned. Maybe it's a red flag alert, like don't date that guy because he's silly. Just some advice looking back. Now that you're all grown, I don't think there are any 7th graders here. 8th graders here. Okay, I'll give you guys a second to really get your heartstrings moving. Okay. Sometimes it do be like that though. I like that, Michaela. Or Michael. I like that, Michael. Beautiful answers. Truly heartwarming. Don't worry about fitting in. Don't worry about fitting your food. Just chill the F out. I appreciate you being candid, Gregory. I love that we have created a space for you to really say what's on your mind. I really appreciate that. Just keep smiling. The people who love you will be there. That's so cute. I love it. I love it. Okay, wonderful, amazing. You can keep putting the advice in here as long as your heart pleases. But we will move along to the next slide. So like Jadab said, one of the most important things about our mental health curricula is that it's not about learning the facts about mental health. It's not so much about learning mental illness, but it's about mental wellness and mental health promotion. In the first practice, we openly make the distinction with students that there's a difference between mental health and mental illness and mental wellness. So we know people live with mental illnesses and everyone has to worry about their mental health. But the point of this curriculum, the main idea of this curriculum is that it's formed around mental health promotion. So it's something that everybody can relate to no matter the things that they are living with. So this was largely led by community input, just like Jadab said. There is a huge want and huge ask of including this in our curricula. Okay, Spencer Kelly said snaps. Thank you. So we also included, I want to highlight the inclusion of a gender and sexuality practice. We play Fact or Nonsense, which is also a classic TGP game where we dispel myths and learn the facts around gender and sexuality. We know there are some hard set facts around these topics, so we lay them out very clearly and openly for students to understand. These topics can be hot topics, they can be a bit controversial, but just like in sexual health, we're here to lay down the facts and give students the tools and resources they need to make decisions that they feel confident about. That's TGP, right? Everything can be here nor there, nor hot topic, this, that, and the other, but we want to make sure students feel comfortable and they have the autonomy to make the decisions that are best for themselves. So we also know that no program exists in isolation. This is the final TGP program within the pipeline, and this is where students have the opportunity to connect everything they've learned from nutrition to sexual health to mental health and really bring all the pieces together. And you guys don't even want to know about the kinds of games that we have in mental health because they are some of the funnest things you'll ever play in your life. We got football, we got lacrosse, we got badminton, we have spike ball, we have basketball, we have volleyball. Guys, do I need to say anything else? That is just so much fun. Shout out to J-Dub, shout out to Mac and Cheese, shout out to T-Spence, shout out to everybody that no tennis. Ugh. Yeah, I don't think we have tennis. Badminton is kind of similar, but gotta talk to T-Spence about that. All the sports. We have more too. I just can't think of them right now. But yeah, that's what I got for you on this slide. So, starting off with stress and emotions. This is where we really get into spike ball. We have spike ball being led here by Georgetown rower Auntie Fensuter, who is an incredible star, just started this semester, and he's already leading the charge. So we hear students very frequently say they feel included and they feel appreciated. And in grassroots, this is a space for them to really talk about different stressors and emotions that they are feeling, which we know is so important because once students are able to name these emotions, then they're able to best regulate these emotions. Then they're able to cope with the stressors that they're feeling once they can acknowledge what they are feeling. Because I'm sure everyone has been in a situation where there's just so much going on, you don't have time to process or the right words to process how you're feeling. So students are able to think, deeper and more personally about their emotions, feelings, relationships, and goals, which complements their grade level right before high school. And we also know that in this curriculum, we don't put words into students' mouths. We don't necessarily give them the topics that they have to talk about, but there is so much flexibility in the curriculum that allows for students to bring those topics to light, that allows them to really put those words that they're feeling out in the open and guide the conversation. And I always like to say that we're facilitators, we're not educators, we're not teachers. Coaches are facilitators. We are here to lead the conversation, to give words, to give prompts, but we are not there to tell students what to say or how to act. So I think the mental health curriculum is a great embodiment of that philosophy and the type of work that we do. So we saw in Brightwood, Center City Public Charter School, Brightwood campus, that where Trigger was in one of those programs, they kind of split up the groups to make like girl group and boy group because there were a lot of relationships in that class. So they saw that these relationships were getting a bit toxic. They weren't the best. They weren't the healthiest relationships that you can imagine in 8th grade. So the teachers made the active decision to separate them a bit, and we're like, okay, let's have the boys having this conversation about toxic masculinity, about how to be with a partner, about really how to set these healthy relationships. And then the girls group might be talking about like vulnerabilities that they have or things that they might feel just like really stressed about or things that can be different, but also the same from the other group. So they found that this approach worked really successful. And I think it speaks to how we modify our approach to reflect the different needs and wants of every single class and every single community that we work in, because we know no two schools are the same, no two communities are the same, no two wards are the same. So in every place that we exist in, whether that's with donors, athletes, coaches, anything, every single stakeholder or person is different, and we are here for the community. We are here doing our best for the community, so we have to abide by those rules at all times. But mental health, it's great. Lovely chatting with you all. And I believe this is mac and cheese, so I'll hand it off to our program manager, Bestie.
Thank you, Lara. And good afternoon, everyone. Super quickly, my name is Mackenzie, also known as Mac or Mac and Cheese. Mac and Cheese is really my grassroots nickname from way back in 2011 when I was a lacrosse player at GW. And I moved on to then teach for 4 years, and I joined our team a little over 2.5 years ago to come back to grassroots and be our program manager here. So I'm going to get straight into this, and I'm going to share a little bit about what we measure and how we measure our success. And I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into that. So Jane's given you a really comprehensive view of where we've gone over the last few years for many of you that have come full circle through 2009, 2011, back in the day when I was a student athlete to now, how we develop our curricula and really what our philosophy is in doing that, and our philosophy in really just our community program work. And so what I want to do is give you a little bit of a glimpse into how we then collect our student data, how we use it, what we measure, and then how we turn that back over to our teachers, our students, our community members as well. Like Jane said, this is their data. So really quickly, I want anyone in the chat who was with us over the years who saw a paper survey to just give me a little like, yep, in the chat. So no longer are the days of us using paper pre-post surveys. We now use Qualtrics, which makes it a lot easier for us to then collect our data, also analyze our data, and turn that directly back over to teachers. Yep, entering thousands of paper surveys was a lot. So we're able to do that really quickly. So we're able to get all of that information to our teachers. So as many of you probably see in an external view of this is often our numbers, those numbers that T-Spence walked us through in the beginning, which is really important because that's really our broader impact. And you'll continue to see that. But I want you to also see a little bit more of our like drilled down impact is which is what I like to look at on a day-to-day basis. What gets me excited to get up in the morning and continue to do this work and improve. So in all three of our curricula, we go ahead and look at different measures. And these are the different sections that we also evaluate for students in their pre and post surveys. So in our nutrition curriculum, we take a look at health knowledge. We also look at value and expectancy. So we look at how much do you value this thing in nutrition or in physical activity, and also how much do you expect this to actually better your health in the future? And we pair those things up to take a look at both their values and their expectancies. And then we look at behaviors. In sexual health, we look at health knowledge, we look at self-efficacy, attitudes and beliefs, and we also look at their communication with parents and caregivers. And in mental health, we take a look at self-efficacy, mental well-being, mental health values, and mental health stigma. So I'm gonna actually just dive right into one of our sexual health reports here and show you some data from this past fall. So our programs are 10 weeks. And so the pre-score that you see here is at the beginning of our programming. And that post score is gonna be at the end of the 10 weeks. And you take a look here, right? And you can see like, wow, increase, great. I wanna tell you a little bit more about it, right? So this is our health knowledge section. And out of 10 questions, our post score average for all of our sexual health students this fall was a 9 out of 10, which shows a deep understanding of a lot of these topics. And I'll actually share with you the 10th question that was most missed. We're thinking, oh, wow, the wording in that's a little funny. So how do we change that? So just a glimpse at like how we then use this data. But something that Jane mentioned earlier is that our virtual programming was really important in informing our in-person programming. It was also really effective. And so all of the 7th graders that received our sexual health in-person programming this fall also received virtual sexual health programming last year when they weren't in school due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we saw that their pre-scores actually started 3 to 4 points higher than we have seen in the past. And so they already started at a higher health knowledge basis, but still improved over those 10 weeks. So I'm gonna move on to some stuff that I think is even more exciting, which is self-efficacy and then attitudes and beliefs. So when we look at self-efficacy in our sexual health curriculum, we're looking at students' confidence in being able to refuse or delay sexual activity. So we can look again at the pre and post, and remember this is just over the course of 10 weeks with students, and we can see that average increase. And you can also take a look at a few of those questions that are in this scale that we use. And each of our self-efficacy scales and our attitude and belief scales are all validated scales that we use in our pre and post surveys. So I'm going to give you a quick second to look here, and then we'll move on to attitudes and beliefs. All right, so in attitudes and beliefs, now we're going from looking at health knowledge, and then we talked about self-efficacy, right? Students' belief in being able to do something, and specifically in sexual health, being able to delay sexual debut or refuse sexual activity. And so in attitudes and beliefs, we're looking at students' comfort level in discussing these issues. And so again, you can see that pre and post, and you can take a look at some of those questions that we ask that are in this scale. And I want to leave time for us to ask questions at the end of all of this. So let's take another 5 seconds, and then we'll move on to my absolute favorite part, which is student feedback. All right. So all of what we just looked at helps inform how we look at, one, are our surveys actually evaluating what we think they are? And so in health knowledge, we looked at one of those questions that students were missing. And we actually said, wow, the majority of students miss this specific question. And I think it might be because of the wording of this. Let's take a look back at it again for the next semester. And then we also look at how we're measuring our success long-term. So that also informs our curriculum development process and what we're doing. But one of my favorite things is looking at student feedback directly from students themselves. So we do 2 pieces to student feedback, and this is one. So we ask students, how much did you like it? How much would you recommend it to a peer? How comfortable did you feel working with your athlete coaches? How important do you think grassroots is for your health and well-being? And how comfortable did you feel talking about your health? And if any single one of you knows a middle schooler, go ahead and say, yes, I know a middle schooler in the chat. You know that they do not give out I like anything very well or very often, right? especially if you know an eighth grader. So I pulled these from eighth grade surveys because eighth graders are particularly can be apathetic to saying that they like something or even that they like it a lot. If you look at how important do you feel grassroots is for your health and well-being on that bottom left, you can see that 42% of eighth graders that we worked with in the fall said that they think grassroots is very important. They would say a lot to that. It is very important for their health and well-being. And so I definitely think that this is also a testament to like Lara and Trinaya were speaking to earlier, the safe and inclusive space that our student athletes create, that our staff creates through our training of our student athletes. And it also does give us a glimpse of what students are feeling and thinking so that we can make a change if we need to in the future. So I'm gonna leave you with actually some words from students themselves in saying what their favorite thing about grassroots is. So this is the last question on our survey, and I'm gonna read out two. I like them all, but I'll read out a few. So the first one is, my favorite thing about grassroots is talking and learning about LGBTQ, so LGBTQ issues. And I think that's really important as we have made that an addition, and Lara highlighted that in our mental health programming. And the last one I'll read out that I think gives us a good summary here to end us and head us into Q&A is, my favorite thing about grassroots program is that they talk about a lot of important topics that can help you in the long run. So without further ado, I will pass the baton in the name of sports, keeping the sports analogies alive, to Diana Diggs for some Q&A.
And I will take it. Hello, everybody. I just want to give you all a quick shout out for joining us today in this first of what we hope to be many opportunities to share exciting updates with you about TGP, about our impact, about the organization, about upcoming events and future Tele-Townhalls. So this is a really great opportunity really quickly to plug our next one, which is actually going to be March 11th. So stay tuned in the coming weeks for details on that, where we will share updates on going national. Yes, that means getting out of the DC area and adding another city under our belt so that we can have an even greater impact, which is so exciting. And we're all delighted to share that news with you in a couple of months. But for now, what I'd like to do is stop talking and actually hear from you. And please do not feel obligated, but we've shared a lot of information and I think we did pretty well on time, despite my concerns. But I'd love to hear from you if anyone has any specific questions in response to, maybe perhaps it could be, how was COVID for you guys? How was navigating through that? And I do encourage you, we have a blog post currently on our website that can tell you a little bit of some of the insights we've learned. But if there's anything else that you have with respect to the program team, or you just want to share an idea or any of your thoughts, this is the time to do that. So please feel free to raise your hand and speak up. Yes, I see a hand.
Ellie,
hi,
go
everyone.
ahead.
Yes, hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and see some familiar faces and new. I'm Spencer, TGP, nickname Skelly. I was a student athlete at Howard University playing tennis. And my question is kind of almost in parallel with the TG connection with like alumni and student athletes. So has there ever been any discussion with keeping in touch with those middle schoolers after 8th grade? So moving into high school and moving into college, checking up on them or seeing how they're doing and just doing more like data analysis of doing like a simple feedback, or having some of these more spaces where they can come back and we can catch up with those middle schoolers?
I'd love to answer that quickly for him, Diana. Skelly, that's such a great question and something we've talked a lot about. Particularly now that we have the pipeline approach, we're able to follow students. We know a lot of their parents and their family members. So we have some organic follow through with students already now that they're in 9th, 10th, some of them are even juniors, which is crazy because I remember them as 6th graders. And so they're following up with us, or their parents are staying engaged. In terms of coming up with systematic ways to make sure that we're continuing to follow through with students, We've thought a lot about a high school internship program. As you know, Spencer, and a lot of people on this call, we've had high school interns over the years through an Urban Alliance program. And so it's a partnership with another organization that trains high school students to then come in and intern for us. And we have organically had some of those be former students that were in our programs, but we have talked a lot about making that a requirement. So we will have our own high school internship program where we bring students that were in our programs where they were in middle school, they can apply and then come and work for us. We have a pretty strong belief that all interns are paid. So this would be also an opportunity. Sorry, the lights went out. That means I haven't moved in enough time. But that would be an opportunity to also, build the capacity and build the workforce within DC. So it is something we are really passionate about. It is to come. We're not totally there yet, as our pipeline has really only been in full effect over the last 2 years. It has been COVID. Our oldest students are really just getting into that age where they would be able to intern. But I love that. And I think in terms of data, to speak to the last part of your question, we would like to continue to follow through with data. Right now, we're really focused on, okay, what does this longitudinal 3-year data mean? And then what are our approaches further down the line?
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Anyone else has any more specific questions or thoughts that you'd like to share with us, suggestions that may be helpful for us as we're looking through the lens of programs today? Well,
while people are still thinking, I want to reiterate again, like how excited I am that we just have had this conversation and I've had a chance to go through and look at all the faces and names here. And I also just want to reiterate, many of you have followed us over many, many years, and it also would not be possible to have this team with this level of complexity that I hope you'll all agree with me in being extremely proud of the presentation we saw today. And it's because of support either from some of you all who have been in this organization or some of you all who have been advisors to us on how to grow or have linked us to other donors who have helped give us money to be able to hire our own staff. This is something that we really haven't even had a substantial staff until recent years. And so it's also really great to see so many of our alumni, our former athletes. We didn't really speak a lot to the impact that this organization has on athletes, and not just how they give back to our organization in many ways, but also the incredible careers that they're pursuing. And many of you who are alumni athletes here know that we are also doing parallel work to engage you all and think about how we can more formally work together as we, in March, will announce our plans to expand. So I hope we have more questions. I know people might have to go, but I'm really proud to see this presentation today from our team, the fact that we've come so far in such a difficult time, and really do just give a lot of gratitude to you all for contributing to where we are in many different ways. So thank you for that. And thanks for coming to listen to us share it all with you.
well, you all know where to find us. Please stay tuned in the coming weeks. Look at your inbox, look at all of our information. Where we announce our next Tele-Townhall, we'll be talking about Philadelphia, which is exciting. For those alum who are on this, stay tuned for more information on our formal rollout of the TGP Alumni Network, which we are excited for that to happen. In the meantime, please feel free to reach out to us individually with questions. And I wish you all a very, very awesome week and weekend. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.